Hi everyone, this is Eagle Track and I am going to be giving you some hints on how to distinguish between liberty and justice. So I have a picture of one of them up right now, so hopefully by the end of this video you can determine which one this is. So let's get started. So right here is the nest tree. This is a ground view of it. So you can tell from this view that it is about 90 to 110 feet up in the air, depending on who you ask and what kind of research you can find. But it is very high up in the tree, and you can tell that it is also a fairly big nest. And we're going to get a close-up of it here in a minute. And in the close-up, you'll be able to see the camera and be able to see where the camera is that we currently use. Now, if you are not familiar with where this is located in Washington, D.C. Liberty and Justice are one of the oldest bald eagle pairs in the area. And so they've had an eagle cam since at least 2002, if not even before then. The 2012 is the first time that I saw them on an eagle cam video. So I know in 2012 there's some videos out there. However, right now we are live and we can watch them anytime on www.eaglecam.org or through the YouTube channel Earth Conservation Corps, CORPS, and Eagle Cam. That is Earth Conservation Corps Eagle Cam. 2017 right now, but when we start the nesting season, we will have it as 2018. So, as you can see here, the nest has been here quite a long time. As I stated before, 2012 is the first earliest video that I've known of Liberty and Justice, though they have been in the area since at least 2005. So they definitely have made their spot here, but that is one big nest. And it can hold up to a 200-pound man, so it is sturdy, even though when they come in and they bring in their limbs, the camera will shake. And when the wind blows, it does blow that nest, so it does seem a little bit scary up there looking through the camera. However, it can hold up to a 200-pound man, so it is very, very strong and sturdy. This is a view from the camera looking straight down. This is looking straight down. So if we were at the top of the nest, we would be looking straight down and this would be the view. And you can see all the twigs and everything poking out from it, but it is very, very sturdy. This is the little eaglet they had last year, Spirit. Some of us think male, some of us think female. And we'll get into some tales or some clues into how to determine gender of a eagle. However, as an eaglet, and that's what the little babies are called of bald eagles, or eaglets, or eaglet if you only have one. The only reason why we cannot tell is because they haven't gotten all their distinguishing features yet. And they won't get those distinguishing features until maturity at 5 years old. So for anyone to really determine the gender of an eaglet is through DNA process. And sometimes that's even true with adults, because sometimes females are bigger than males, or males are bigger than females. And so DNA is really the only true accurate test to determine gender of an eaglet or a bald eagle. Now, of course, there's certain things we can look for that will help us determine, just as an observer, of male and female. However, for true gender identification, DNA is the best way. But this is Little Spirit, named through a naming contest for the 25th anniversary for Earth Conservation Corps, and then bringing the bald eagle to the DC area. So this is Spirit. The only reason why I'm showing you Little Spirit in this picture, and she or he is probably not that little. This is probably about as big as she or he will get, because this was taken in June 1st of July. So she or he is probably about full grown right now. Is to show you the side of that nest and see how you can look down and see the sides of the nest, and just in case you can't see my cursor. This right here is called, or I call it, the dead tree because of all the dead limbs on it. This is the place where Liberty and Justice perch at night sometimes. We haven't been able to see a full season of where they perch, so we're very excited about that happening this year. And so, but they usually perch in this tree, which means that that's where they spend their time protecting the nest, keeping an eye on the eaglets, or just protecting their area. Usually within a 1 mile span, eagles will protect their area, though it could be smaller or larger depending on the area, that how big or how territorial there are of eagles in the area. So if there's a lot of eagles in the area, like there are in DC, the repopulation that the Earth Conservation Corps did 25 years ago has given the area great bald eagles. In fact, there's another set of bald eagles, very famous bald eagles, about 7-8 miles from this one. So there's territorial things, and so you will find that it's usually within 1 mile, but it can be less than that, usually not less than half a mile, because these are big birds. Their wingspans can get up to 8 feet long from wingtip to wingtip, so it's very intimidating. These are very large raptors, very large birds, so they need a lot of space, hence the big nest. In this picture, you see Little Spirit laying in the nest with his or her head in what's called the rails or the twigs. When you have one eaglet, because just naturally bald eagles have 2 to 3 eggs at a time, and so normally they have 2 eaglets. That's pretty average, 2 eaglets per nest. Then mom and dad both provide food. If there's only 1 eaglet, the chances of it surviving to juvenile age is very great, because both parents will bring in food for that eaglet. And so once the eaglet gets food, it is just like a regular human baby. It falls asleep. And so that's what Little Spirit is doing. We call it, in chatter world, a food coma. And so basically Little Spirit's in a food coma, and it looks like Liberty here is bringing in another fish. So Little Spirit's about to get fed again. And at times, Spirit's little crop, or where they store their food, would get so big it would be bigger than his little head, and so it'd be wobbling around the nest trying to get to one side or the other and get comfortable. Eventually, though, that does make them grow a little bit faster, and so It doesn't speed up the process any, but it does help them learn how to digest their food and get that digestive system going. And so it is a great thing to watch, watching the little eaglets and their crops grow. And adults have the same crops. It's just harder to show on them because obviously because of their size and how much they need to keep in their crop. It's not as easy to see as we can see on the eaglets. And so, but that's basically what that is part of their digestive system. So right here we have Liberty and we have Justice. Liberty likes the right side of the branching process, which means where they like to perch, where they like to spend their time, because a lot of their time is just defending their territory. So they spend time where they're comfortable. And so Liberty perches on the right and Justice perches on the left. And so with that, you have these distinguishing things. So if one of them is not in the area, you will find that the other one will go to the other side. Like sometimes you'll find Liberty on the left and Justice on the right if they're by themselves. But if they're perched together like this photo shows, then Liberty's going to be on the right and Justice is going to be on the left. And so that also helps. If you will also notice, they're kind of a little bit further apart from each other and they're not right across from each other. And of course, if their nest was to get attacked, this allows them, full on, they see something, they can just go and not have to try to get on the other side of their mate to get to the danger. They can just fly right out. And this also allows the other one to turn and go real quickly as well. So they're not right across from each other, and they never really are, just for that fact alone, that they need that room to go if there's danger. If another eagle or another eaglet or some other bird comes into their territory, then they have that fight and flight go. So Liberty is always on the right, Justice is always on the left. And here you can see more of some facial features between the two. Liberty has more chest feathers up on her neck, or like in a V shape, than Justice does. Justice is more around. He has that signature bald eagle look that we kind of see everywhere, and it goes around his neck. You will also see that Liberty's, what's known as her nares or her nostrils, are a little bit further up on her beak, and so they come together. If you were to look down from the sky down, you would see that Liberty's nares or nostrils are more together than Justice's are. Also, and we'll go into a little bit of this as well, Justice has a smaller beak than Liberty, and that is also a tell between male and female of bald eagles. That's one of those signs or tales of which one's male and which one's female. Typically, the male has a smaller beak, smaller tip than the female does. The female beak is wider and longer. But again, that's typical, not always every set of eagles. But that is pretty typical. That's something that observers look for. They also look for head feathers, which one is more slicked back, you might say, smoother than the other, meaning the feathers are kind of more wild, maybe poofy. Again, not necessarily true, but it can be. Justice and Liberty have both fooled many of us observers in this last year that we've been watching. With Liberty will have the slick back, and Justice will have the fluffy hair or fluffy feathers. So I'll be all like, "Oh, there's Liberty," and then I'll have to look for other signs, and they'll be, "Oh no, sorry, my mistake. That was Justice." And so there are times where you have to look at all the signs and all the tails, not just that one. And so, especially with these two. They like to interchange sometimes on what should be, but the beaks never change. The beak size does not change. That is pretty typical. Here you can also see where Justice has kind of a straight, what I call an eyebrow or a ridge on him, where Liberty, not quite as much. She has more of a downward eyebrow, more pronounced. And Justice has more gray in around his eyes, more maybe eyeliner, if you want to say that, more dark than Liberty as well. And so if you get a close-up view, sometimes that's how you can tell as well. Here you can see that we have Liberty and Justice, okay, and Liberty is on the nest because I can see some chest feathers here coming up towards the beak, and so that is Liberty. And then the one that is right here that we can't see the face or anything about, that would be Justice. Normally, both eagles will incubate the eggs. Liberty, the mama, she is the female. She will incubate the eggs, as well as Justice, which is the male. He will incubate as well. And so closer that it gets to time for the eggs to hatch, Liberty, and this is true with most eagles that I've watched, the mama will usually want to stay on the nest more and not get the rest that she needs versus the male. And so you'll see sometimes when it's get closer to the time to the eggs to hatch that mama or Liberty will want to stay on the nest more and won't let Liberty or Justice on, won't let the dad on. And so that does happen, and I think that's just, again, part of nature. Mamas are mamas, and so we just kind of go with that. Actually, in that last picture, I'm sorry, in that last picture, that was actually Liberty, and that was her tail, and we'll look at that some more. The wider the white tail is a sign of female versus male as well. So the wider the white tail, then that is Liberty. That is your female. The smaller or the narrower the white tail, that is your male, and that would be Justice. Now in this picture, we have Liberty on the right and Justice on the left, and here you can certainly tell there's a different size. Liberty is definitely bigger than Justice in this photo, but we can also see some white on the leg feathers, and that is a sign that is also Justice, because Justice is the only one with white on the leg feathers. So, and also you can see their crops or their chest kind of bulging a little bit. That's where they've stored food. And this is getting close to when they will be mating and having the eggs. Here you can see the V on Liberty and kind of the circle or non-V or non-chest feathers going up towards the beak on Justice. All right, so here we go. So I just went through the whole head feather thing. So I would immediately go, oh, well, Justice is on the right and Liberty is on the left. Well, no. This is a case where the head feathers aren't always your sure sign, because remember I told you the nares, the nostrils on Liberty are closer together. She has the V neck, and so even though the head feathers are all slicked back, that is Liberty because of that. And that is Justice on the left because there is no V and the nares or the nostrils are further apart. So this is where sometimes we get confused on just going with, oh, that's one or the other, without looking at all the signs together. And I'm guilty of it. I fully admit I'm guilty of it. I will just blurt out it's one, just looking at one thing without looking at everything else. So I am guilty of it. So don't feel bad if you get them confused, because I do it all the time. But I have to look at all the signs that are there. The V-neck, the white on the leg, the nares, the nostrils, the eyebrows. I have to look at everything, not just the white feathers on the head and how they should be slicked backed or poofed out, because it could be either way. In this particular case, I actually have a before shot of Justice before these head feathers came out, and his were just as slick back as Liberty's. He heard something or something caught his eye, and he is about to go attack. And so this is before an attack, and when they do attack or they hear an intruder or something like that, they do puff up like that. So sometimes you, like anything else, you can't assume anything. You just have to look for those tails or their signs, and also kind of look at the whole picture, not just the one. So I put that one in there to tell you that. And then here you see them, Justice on the left, Liberty on the right, and you see there. This is Liberty, and you can tell by the tail that was Liberty. This is, again, Liberty and Justice. We saw the left angle of them. This is the right angle of them. One of the things about Justice and his beak and his nare or his nostril is that it is more pronounced at the ridge. They have ridges on their nostrils, and we'll see it up close here in a minute. And his is more pronounced than on the right side than it is the left side. And so that also gives you an opportunity to look to see which one is which as well. Another tail, another sign for you to look at. This is Spirit after he or she first left the nest and started flying. And this is called fledging. When the eaglet first starts to fly, they fledge. And so this is Spirit fledging next to the dead tree. And this was really a quick shot. But because once an eaglet fledges, it's like a 2-year-old when they start to walk. It's hard keeping up with them and trying to follow them. And so once an eaglet fledges, it's hard to catch them and they're flying, because they're like a 2-year-old human. Once they start walking, you can't keep up with them. So Same here. And this is the dead tree branch that Liberty and Justice like to perch on or stay on. This is a side view. If we were to turn our head from the nest to the left, this would be the view that we would see. In the very, very background, you might see a little dot. We believe that to be Spirit flying, though it could be any juvenile bird, eagle in the area. And also in the very far background, you see a bridge that is part of the Potomac River. That is the Maryland side where the nest is located. And that is also where the Washington Ferris wheel is, the Capitol Ferris wheel. The Washington, D.C. Capitol Ferris wheel is. And you can kind of see that in the background as well. So kind of give you a view of what we can see when we move the camera around. Currently, it's just on the nest and being left at the nest until some maintenance are done. So if you go to www.eaglecam.org or on the YouTube channel of Earth Conservation Corps, EagleCam Live, you will just see the eagle's nest, the Liberty and Justice's nest. You won't see any side views until some maintenance is done and the new camera is put up. And then we'll see some more views of the river and aerial views. But you can also see the thickness of the trees back beyond the building, how thick those trees are. And there are also other eagles that live in that area that come down to the river. So it's quite fascinating to go look in that area and see all the activity and all the different birds and things like that. Okay, so here is what little Spirit looked like after she was born, or he was born. Okay, so they're little bitty. The eggs are about the size of a baseball. So Spirit here is about the size of a baseball, maybe a little bit bigger, but they can't regulate their body temperature yet. So for another week or two, Liberty and Justice will have to keep incubating or laying on Spirit and the egg, which we know now to be non-viable, but at the time they will still incubate it or sit on it until they know that it's non-viable. But the little eaglet, once it's hatched, it just kind of has little down fur feathers. And so they really can't regulate their own body heat for at least 2 weeks after hatching. It takes about 2 to 3 weeks for their body temperature to really regulate. And so with that, you see Justice leaving to take a break. Now there's a big, huge fish there, but I'm sure there'll be another fish coming in because, again, they're expecting 2 little baby eaglets, and 2 babies want food, so they're going to provide for 2 eaglets. And so Liberty is going to be sitting on little Spirit and the egg while Justice goes and gets more food because that's what his job is. And now they will incubate an egg as long as they think that it will hatch. Now, after a certain point, the egg will kind of get moved into the nesting, into what's known as the bowl, which is where the grass area is, and that egg will become part of the nest. Now, some experts say that the egg can be part of the nest, or it can be part as a meal, or it can be or it can be taken out, be part of just other things around the tree. The 2 non-viable eagle eggs that I saw became part of the nest. So, but we really are still learning a lot about the bald eagle and their natural habitats. And so through these eagle cams, like this one that Earth Conservation Corps set up for us, we can certainly watch and take notes and see how nature progresses, especially with these two, since they are an older bald eagle pair. Now, they do mate for life, so they will be together until one of them is either passed away or is somehow injured and can no longer be a mating partner. If the eagle is injured, it depends on the injury. This is nature, and nature is not nice, and so injuries do happen. There is a nest where the mama has a broken leg, but she is still able to provide for the nest, and she is very viable. And so as long as she is able to continue doing what, building the nest and making eggs and mate and do all the things that she can do, there's nothing we can do to intervene at this time. And so for us humans, that is very hard for us not to go and try to fix that mama. But, we cannot intervene. And so unless it is just something that has to be intervened by authorities. And so going next to a bald eagle nest or having bald eagle feathers is prohibited by law, and you will be fined, and that is the federal law. And so just know that we may see some things that we may not want to see, but it is part of nature, and nature is not always nice. So as much fun as it is to watch, it can be hard to watch at times. So please be aware that we can alert the wildlife personnel and rescue personnel of what is happening. However, unless there is something detrimental or humans have become part of the situation, there is nothing that they will do to intervene. So I have seen eaglets die. I have seen a mama eagle die. It's not very pleasant, but it is part of nature. And so as unfortunate as that sounds and as heartbreaking as it was, it is nature. And so we have to always remember, we are observers. We are learners. We are not to intervene unless, it is absolutely imperative that we do. And as much as it breaks my heart and breaks other people's hearts and makes them mad, we have to respect nature. And so that's my spiel for that. Anyways, moving on. Okay, so here are some signs. Okay, this is just an example from the U.S. Department of Wildlife Services and the Department of Agriculture. This is one sign or tail that we can look for on the foot. And I wish I had kind of included this, but it was not a picture that I got authorization for, so one of the reasons why I didn't include it. But I have a picture of an eaglet next to a mama, and you can tell that the eaglet will be a male because the two eaglets' feet were smaller than the 1 foot of the mama. So that little eaglet was going to be a male. So not only do you look at the actual size of the foot, but you also look at what's known as the halix or the helix. The black part of the foot is called the talon, kind of like the toenail. And so that talon length determines gender. If it is about 1 inch long, it is a male. If it's about 2 inches long, then it's going to be a female. And so even though the size of the foot may be smaller, you got to look at the helix or kind of look at that toe or that talon, and that will determine gender. And so because we are just observers, we really can't tell from a camera, but we try anyways on the little eaglets. Again, the only way truly to know on an eaglet is to do DNA testing. But on the male or females, this is one of the signs that you can look at is on their foot, on that back toe talon or back toe, the helix. What size is it? About an inch? Is it about 2 inches? And then the front is called the tarsus, or the front of the foot is the tarsus. Now, one thing that you will notice, or that I've noticed, is that the feathers of the leg feathers on an eagle do not go all the way around. It's just on the front part, and then in the back there are no feathers, but the feathers will kind of like hair, it'll kind of cover it, and so the back of the leg has no feathers, but the feathers kind of encapse it all. And just because it's fun and we like to use non-technical names, a lot of us will refer to, a lot of us chatters, or a lot of us who watch eagle cams, will refer to the feathers on the legs as pantaloons, and that's just an old term. Here is the eye and the different sections of the eye. The bony ridge, or what I call the eyebrow, is the bony ridge that protects the eye from the sun, kind of like our own eyebrows do. The eye itself has an inner eyelid as well as an outer eyelid. The inner eyelid is called the noctating membrane, and it's to help make sure that the eye keeps moisture and keeps things out, feathers, dirt, things like that. Now, if it does get too irritated, then the eagle will close both the noctating eyelid and the outer eyelid, and so it'll look like the eagle's been beat up, like it's got a black eye or something, but really they're just trying to clean the eye so that it will be good. And that usually happens to all of us. When the noctating eyebrow membrane comes up, or eyelid, the inner eyelid called the noctating membrane, when it comes up, it is not clear. It has kind of like a sunglass look to it. And so if you catch it just right in a photograph, it'll look like a silver eyelid, and it will be very, very interesting. And they don't have to close them at the same time, and they usually don't. So you will see one left eye go up with the noctating and the right eye not do that, or they'll do that, they'll close one eye and keep one eye open. Especially if there's a lot of wind and debris in the air, they'll do that. Again, just like us and our own eyelids, we trying to keep things of our eyes, they do the same thing. We have sunglasses, obviously, but that inner eyelid kind of acts like a sunglass to them, if you want to say something like that. They do have eagle eye vision, which means that their vision is very, very sharp, very, very far, at a long distance during the day. At night, not so much. They don't see quite as well as night. Usually they don't fly at night. I have seen them fly at night, but it's not very long distance. It's usually maybe from branch to branch, or up the tree or down the tree, that they're familiar with, but they don't fly off. They usually just fly in that area that they're in, if they're going to fly anywhere. So it's not really flying, but I have seen them move from the top of the tree to the bottom of the tree. So they do move, and they have done that. But as far as hunting, they do not hunt at night because their eyesight is not that great. Okay, so here we have the beak and the feathers, the white feathers. Now, once they're mature, those feathers will turn completely white. Up until maturity, you'll see little specks of black from the black feathers or brown. And that usually shows people maturity age, because once an eagle becomes about 4.5, almost 5 years old, that's maturity, and that's usually when they can start mating and having little eaglets. And so that also helps in distinguishing us between a visitor when they come to the nest, which they usually do after Liberty and Justice have gone on their little vacation. That's after eagle season. We'll usually see a visitor of some kind, and depending on their head feathers depends on how old they will be. And we saw one that was almost mature this last July after Liberty and Justice left, kind of poking around the nest, looking for some scraps, which they'll do. On the nostrils, again, you've heard me talk a lot about that, and you see the little ridge right there next to the nostril where the arrow is pointing. That's the ridge I was talking about on Justice. On the right side is very, very pronounced. His ridge is very pronounced on the right side. Not so much on the left, but on the right is very pronounced. You can see it. And so his is also a little bit wider, and wider as far as compared to this picture, but it's also longer, and so that's another thing you look for as well. On a male, this in between those two red arrows where it says nostrils and beak's tip, right in there in that area, in that middle part of that beak, if it is thin like it is here, or smaller, that usually indicates male. If it was a little bit wider or thicker, then that would indicate female. And then also the beak's tip, where it says beak's tip and it kind of goes down and touches the tongue there, that would also be longer on a female. This one is a male, and if you look, the bottom of the lower jaw and the upper part of the jaw or the beak at the very end goes to the middle of the pupil of the eye, kind of makes a straight line right there. That usually indicates male. If the lower beak and the upper beak were past that eye, that usually indicates female. But not in every case. I've seen females where it stops right there at the edge of the eye, and I've seen males where it goes back behind the eye. So not always the best way to tell, but it is one way. But I wouldn't go on that alone, because it can be really deceiving on that. But that is one way. But I always look at, for Liberty and Justice, I always look at the tail. I always look for the white feathers on the foot for Justice, and I look at the chest and the neck area. That's what I always look for, because them two can interchange on the head feathers quite easily. On the throat, I am going to go back to that slide just for a second, because I did not finish what I wanted to on that. On that beak, when it was looking at the tongue, the one thing I wanted to show you on the tongue was, and they don't really say it here, but see how it kind of makes like a little fork, or has like a little notch there kind of towards the middle. That is called a bar, and on the very top you can see that it's black right where that bar is. They're showing us the underneath here, but on the very top there's a bar, and on that bar, that is what helps break it down, and part of why the tongue is so thick and strong to push the fish or whatever meal they are eating. The only things I have seen eagles eat are fish, squirrels, mice, and rabbits. I've not seen any domesticated animals, or one ate a deer, but I've never seen them eat domesticated. I know there's YouTube videos everywhere for that, but I'm not convinced that that will happen unless there is absolutely no food around, and that is it. But that is neither here nor there. So on the tongue, there's the bar, and then there's black indicating that on the tip. This is what the typical wingspan is, and it kind of tells you, kind of length is about 7 to 8 inches, depending on, or feet, depending on wingspan, 6.5 to 8 feet wingspan. And so that gives you an idea. The males are usually the smaller wingspan. The females have the longer wingspan. You see the immature bald eagle on the left. It has a darker bill than the golden eagle, because bald eagles look very similar to golden eagles, and so they will, if someone is trying to shoot, which they shouldn't be, but if they're trying to shoot at a golden eagle, they'll mistake an immature bald eagle for that. So, and unlike anything else, the very similar looking golden eagle, the juvenile bald eagles do not have their signature feathers or their down feathers visible to their ankles like the golden eagle. So some differences there, but if you're just looking, trying to figure out, we'll look at what an immature bald eagle looks like here in just a second. Yeah. And how the white will suddenly go away from underneath their wings to their tail feathers and their head feathers. So you can see there the whiteness that starts to go away underneath their wing. Okay, and here's where I was talking about the end of the mouth, the lower jaw and the upper jaw, or the beaks, meet, and how they can be male or female. This also gives you a good showing of beak and nostrils. You see how the male has kind of a wider, smaller beak, a wider nostril, a smaller beak, where the female here has a wider beak and smaller nostril. And that's pretty typical on most bald eagles. Like I said, sometimes I have found that this is not always necessarily true as far as the indicator for the back of the jawline or the beak line, because sometimes the males will go all the way back and sometimes the females will come a little bit further forward. So it's not always the case. Typically it is, but not always. You have to look at other signs as well. Again, another picture of how we start as a juvenile to the left, and you see the second year, and then the 4th year, and then the adult at the very end on the right. And so you can see how they lose those white feathers as they continue to age and mature on the underneath of the wings, and a way to develop that and get their signature look. So here is Liberty and Justice. Hopefully I've given you enough information that you know which one is which by now. But just in case, I've given you this picture because of the tail feathers, the white tail feathers. Liberty is on the right. Her white tail feathers are wider. You can also see there are white tail feathers that come from underneath her wing a little bit. And her wingtips do not go all the way to the end of her white feathers, her white tail feathers. So if you really look at her wings and you really examine her wingtips on her tail, you will notice that when she tucks them in and lays them on her tail, that the right one will be a little bit crooked than the left one. And so that's one way to tell, though Justice does the same thing too. But hers does a little bit more than his. He has like what's known as a little teardrop or a little triangle in his when he lays his on his tail feathers. He has a teardrop. They don't, when he is ready to leave or he's real relaxed, the wings will actually spread apart and there'll be a little rectangular box on his tail from where his wings don't meet. So his identification from the back is real easy because his white tail is thinner. His wingtips usually touch almost to the end of his white tail. And when he does have them, when he is really relaxed and kind of just sitting there waiting for Liberty or checking everything out, the wingtips won't actually touch, and they'll create some kind of box or teardrop or triangle, and Liberty's will not. Hers pretty much stays pretty tucked in. Right when she takes off, when she moves her wings out a little bit, there's a little bitty teardrop, but not much. It's not pronounced like Justice is. His is very pronounced and very easy to locate. So sometimes I'll say to people, well, let me see the back, or let me see how he's sitting or perching, because I can always tell if it's Justice or Liberty based on where those wingtips are on the white tail, because of how distinctly they tuck them in and how they settle on the white tail. And then along with the other things like the white feathers on the legs and the nares or the nostrils and things like that, I can usually say, yes, that is, or no, it isn't, based on how they're laying their wingtips, along with everything else. This is Liberty, because you can see Liberty is laying in the nest, and you can see the chest feathers going up, and Justice is basically perched or waiting for his time to sit on the eggs for them to hatch. Not only do we have March Madness, but we have March Eagle Madness, because a lot of eaglets are born in March as well. Spirit was born in March. This is Liberty coming off the nest. Wide tail feathers there. Liberty coming on the nest. Oh, I kind of got two pictures in one there, but see how the wingtips cross right there. And then we have Justice coming in with the fish. See the white tail feathers on his left leg. Spirit is down here. This is what an eaglet does. It's called mantling. When they are ready to fly or whenever dad or mom delivers the food, they do what's known as mantling. It is a survival mechanism that they use to basically get food. This is how they fight other eaglets, other juveniles, other subadults, those that aren't quite adult but aren't quite juvenile yet, teenagers in the human term. So this is the pounce. This is how they use the stance that they use, and they continue to use it through life. Only when they find their pair, the mated pair, what I have found is the male brings in the food still, the female just goes over and takes it. So there, but I think it's like everything else. We're kind of we kind of have a lot of strength and a lot of know-it-all when we're a teenager, but then when we get older, we're like, it's not worth it. So, but this is Justice coming in. I immediately could tell the white feathers on the leg, but if you notice as well, he has the rounded white feathers around the chest. So if I hadn't seen the white feathers on the leg, I could look at his neck area and see that it's round, and that also tells me that that is Justice. I can also tell that it's Justice because of the furrowed brow, the eyebrow, or the ridge over the eye. It's giving the eye more darkness. It's more prominent, and that is Justice as well. So some things there. When you have two eaglets, you also have to be ready to distinguish between the two eaglets, and maybe this next season we'll have two, but this last season we only had one, and that was Little Spirit here. Now, I've given you all these tales or signs to look for, and based on that, Little Spirit would be a female because the mouth or the beak goes all the way to the back. We got some really long talons going on here. It could be about 2 inches. However, it is a very real possibility that Spirit could be a male because a lot of those features don't come into play until they reach their full maturity. So there is a possibility that Little Spirit could be male, but for me, Little Spirit is a female, but for some, Little Spirit is male. And we're just happy that Spirit is here and that they will be thriving in the community of Washington, D.C. and Maryland. And that is the real thing that we are really happy about. And we see Little Spirit again playing with the camera. And again, you see that mouth go all the way back to the edge of the eye. So that's my tell sign, and plus she was really aggressive. Spirit was really aggressive, so that was my other thing, in the thickness of the beak and some of the things that I look for liberty and justice. However, again, that is not always true in the eaglets because they are still growing, they are still maturing, and that will eventually lead to their gender. But for us, it's kind of a fun activity for us observers, a fun activity to use all these signs that we use for the adults on the eaglets to say, oh, that's going to be a male. Oh, that's going to be a female. So it's just kind of a fun little thing we do as chatters. But to really determine and to really know, we would have to do DNA testing on Spirit to really say, yes, that's a female, or no, that's a male. So, but it's really fun for us chatters to say, no, please, no, and kind of argue about it. It's kind of fun for us. But this is also showing you how playful they can be. And they notice the cameras more than Mom and Dad do. Liberty and Justice don't notice the camera as much as the little eaglets do. And so it's kind of fun to have them kind of be little observers of us, I guess. see what the camera is all about. And so that's kind of a fun thing to do. It also shows you the nest there. And this is kind of a little quiz. This is Little Spirit. You can tell from the egg. And then who would you think that would be based on everything that I've told you? Again, little spirit, and then justice and liberty. Excuse me. Okay, and so here is liberty. And this is our beginning and where we started. So hopefully by now you know who that is based on everything I've told you. So I hope you enjoy this 1 hour tutorial, which I didn't plan on it being 1 hour. However, hopefully it gives you lots of information to take with you, not only when you watch us on the Liberty and Justice channel at www.eaglecam.org or on the YouTube channel Earth Conservation Corps Eagle Cam 2017, which will be changing to 2018 for next season. But it'll give you information to take with you to your other Eagle Cams that you do watch. But we look forward to seeing and chatting with you on our many social networks of Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube chatter. Some of us, like myself, do email people. We do give out our emails so that if you have specific questions, we can email you back. Earth Conservation Corps, the people who put this together, not this particular slideshow, but put the whole Eagle cameras together so that we can view this, are awesome people. They're just awesome, and they are willing to answer your questions day or night on anything that you might have concerning any raptors, including hawks, owls, eagles, anything that you have a question on relating to these wonderful birds. They are always there, and you can email them at any time. And so I look forward to chatting with you soon, and I look forward to seeing y'all soon. So that's really for my students. So have a great Eagle Day or night. Sweet Eagle dreams if you are viewing this at night. And please leave me a comment about any questions that you might have concerning anything that I've gone over today. So thank you and goodbye.